Okay, members, could I welcome everyone to today's meeting for the Committee for the Economy. Start by apologies. Gary Middleton and Mr Buckley will be late. Are there any declarations of interest members wish to declare at this time? If not, Chairperson's business. Members, 4.1 committee visit that previously agreed. I attended the Economic Investment Showcase event on the 10th of December in London, organised by Antrim Abbey Borough Council and Queen's University Belfast. Members content I write them to thank them for that. Agreed. Okay. 4.2 then, delegated legislation. Newly received delegated legislation will be dealt with under the new processes. All statutory committees will publish SL1s and draft SRs, and any associated documents. The views of stakeholders will then be sought by a citizen space to set pro forma questions. The idea is to address the criticisms of Assembly scrutiny. The rules will be considered at this meeting were received under the previous arrangement. Any new rules will fall under the new process. Members content with that? Thank you. Item 5 then is draft minutes for page 10. Members content I sign those? Agreed. Item 6, matters arising any. If not, move to item 7 then, which is the outcome of the December monitoring round. The committee will receive an update on the outcome of the December monitoring round from the department. Can I welcome our friends and colleagues from the department, Niamh and Conor? Thank you very much for coming along here today. Can I pass on to my sympathies to Joanna on her recent bereavement, and thank you guys for being here today and for the work that you're doing. And I'm very happy to hand over to you at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. I'm joined today by my colleague Conor McStravick to provide an update to members on DFE's final budget position and expected outturn for 25-26. The DFE 25-26 non-ring fence resource DEL budget is $842.4 million. This is broken down at 799 million of a controllable allocation and 43.4 million of executive and treasury earmark funding, covering the Open, the Graduate Entry Medical School, Peace Plus, City Deal CPD fees, Windsor Framework and UK Share Prosperity funding. Turning to capital, DFE has received 12.6 million additional funding as part of December monitoring and processed technical transfers in both December and the January exercise, totaling 19.4 million, bringing our total capital to 235 million. This is inclusive of 71 million earmark funding, of which 50 relates to city deals. Details of our December position are allocated to business areas and our partner organisations has been provided to you in the tables of our briefing. However, due to the timing, it did not include the January technical exercise. Therefore, in relation to ORDEL, there was three significant movements. Energy transferred out 1.2 million, and Skills and Education Group received a further 0.3, both within controllable. FE College received 0.6 million from UK SPF within the earmark funding in ORDEL. In CDEL, there was two significant movements. Energy received 1.7 million and the Entrepreneurship and Innovation and Economic Strategy Group received an additional 3.8 million for Pride and Place, both within controllable. Members have also received a copy of our department's ring fence resource DEL and capital DEL budget bids, submitted to the Department of Finance as part of December monitoring, as well as our reduced requirements, which all related to earmark funding. Following our submission, DOF advised departments that they would welcome bids for financial transaction capital. As a result, we submitted a bid for 2.5 million, which was successful and has been allocated in full to Invest in I, bringing our total FTC budget to 10.8 million for 25-26. The DFE 25-26 budget will be fully utilised to support our Minister's priorities of creating good jobs, promoting regional balance, raising productivity and accelerating progress towards net zero, while enhancing our capability to deliver against key programme from government outcomes. Chair, that concludes my opening statement. Conor and I will do our utmost to answer our questions that any members may have, but if a detailed response is required, we will ask our business areas to follow up written.
Thank you very much, Niamh and Conor, and thank you very much for that and for stepping up and coming to committee today. If I could just start in relation to the FTC, can I pay tribute to you for bidding further for FTC? It's been something I think that historically across government we have been trying to utilise. Would this be then up at 10 million? Is that a record for the department in terms of FTC allocation and hopeful spend by 31st of March?
I don't know if it's a record,
Sure.
but I do know that it is higher than it has been in recent years, but I can check that out if you want.
No, it's just to say thank you for doing that. You know, at a time where we have limited resources, trying to best utilise FTC is very, very important. So thank you for that. In terms of that allocation to Invest Northern Ireland, is that for them to continue current programmes, to, I assume, given it's in financial year?
Yeah, it is to continue current programmes that actually, hold on. IFF. It's for Investment Fund for Northern Ireland.
Very good.
I was getting 2.1 million of it, and the 0.4 is for Tech Start 3.
Very good. And then just one final from me was on the City Deal aspect. So there had been some movement and reduced requirement in relation to that. Does that just reprofiling then for the next financial year?
Reprofiling, and I suppose it is good financial management to declare these easements as we know about them, so that it is saved for the Northern Block into next year.
And can I thank you for that? And you know, the easements that you guys have done in this department is exemplary in terms of when I look at some other capital easements in other departments and the earliness of which you have flagged them to ensure that, you know, they can be reprofiled and used in wider government. So can I, on behalf of the committee, thank you for all your work on this. It's been very, very important. David.
Oh, cheers, thank you for the presentation and everything there. Can I just ask you, see, whenever you look through, there's a column about energy group, about the 3.5 to 6.7 million. What does energy group include? What is that? What's in that?
Is that the resource?
It's a resource. It's 3.5 million, and it's risen to 6.7 million.
That was the opening allocation for capital. So that is any of their capital requirements.
What is energy group? Is that within the
department? Within the department.
So the energy section or something? So what's the reason for the doubling, basically, of the money when there's
so that was an allocation in June that we got for energy for specific projects, and it has been utilised in the transfer that we've just made out for energy intensive industries. As part of it has been used for that, and then there's various other projects that they've utilised it against RHI.
Can we get detail? There seems to be so little happening within and from that department that I'm trying to work out where the double, you know, the double that.
That was in June, so then it has.
That's a 100% increase in cost, but there isn't a 100% increase in output. So where's the? It's a breakdown. Can you give us
breakdown of what exactly energy is spending that money on?
Yeah, where that's going, just and that was really. Sorry, the other one was tourism. There was 25 and it dropped to 20.
That's the earmarked.
It was earmarked.
Sorry, there's 5 million for earmarked.
Okay.
So if you look at the table, there's 20 in the controllable section, and then an extra 5 million for earmarked. I think possibly the table that you got didn't have the total.
Okay.
Which would be 25 then. So.
Okay, so it showed us 25.
When I was sending the briefing up, there were so many columns because we're now so far through the year that I didn't add in the total column, so that's totally my fault because it was for my eyesight. I couldn't read it all, so I just took out that. But we can add it in and we could update it.
That explains. I was just trying to work out why
the QB movements in January if you wanted it to come up. Yeah,
that's perfect. No, but that's me. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I have no other questions.
Oh.
So,
very detailed.
No, listen, it's a useful outcome for the December monitoring exercise. Obviously, the committee will be very interested to see when the budget's finally agreed what the outcome for the department is at that stage, and discussions may be somewhat more prolonged at that stage. But thank you for your update in relation to the outcome of the December monitoring run.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the actions then, Chair, would just be to write to the department and we'll seek the list of the projects in the energy group, and they've offered to update the table as well for us, which I'll like. So if that is agreed, Chairperson.
Members content? Okay, we'll move to item 8, members, which is evidence from the department in respect of feedback to its consultation on the RHI Closure Regulations. I refer members to the clerk's covering note at page 33, a department paper summarising the feedback at page 44, the department's closure consultation on page 84, the department's response on the delegated powers association with the RHI Closure Non-Domestic Scheme Bill at page 105, and related correspondence from the Department for Finance at page 109.
Just trying to find the officials.
Yeah.
They're not far away.
Hi Sarah, how are you? Good, excellent. You're all very welcome. Could I welcome Sarah Brady, Director of the Energy Operations at the Department, Alan Smith, who's the Project Manager for RHI in the Department, and Catriona Harkin, who's the Deputy Director of Energy Operations. You're all very welcome. Happy New Year, and thank you for coming along to the committee today to brief us on the feedback to the Department's consultation on closure regulations, and happy to hand over to you for you to update the committee on that process to date.
Thank you, Chair, and Happy New Year also. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee today to discuss the proposed closure of the non-domestic RHI heat incentive scheme. Our approach is guided by the principle of fairness to participants and the need to protect public finances and ensure value for money to taxpayers. The bill before you is an enabling piece of legislation. It would give the department the powers required to make regulations that would formally close the scheme and put in place new arrangements for closure, including closure payments for eligible participants. As the committee will be aware, we have recently concluded a public consultation on the proposed closure arrangements. However, I must emphasise that all the changes arising from the consultation remain subject to executive approval. No final decisions have been taken, and everything discussed today is provisional and contingent that approval is secured. In that context, we have already provided the committee with the draft government response to the consultation. In addition to that, we would hope to share the draft closure regulations with the committee as soon as possible, and hopefully in the coming days.
And that's just waiting on executive approval on those, or before?
We have a wee bit more work to do on the regulations themselves, but it's minimal, and we will get them to you as soon as possible. We're hoping that will be within, as soon as possible within the coming days. If executive approval is granted and subject to participants meeting the necessary requirements, eligible participants would receive annual closure payments based on their historic heat generation during the 17 to 19 period. These payments would continue until the end of each participant's original 20-year period, provided that their installation remains in use. The department received 216 responses to the consultation, which provided valuable oversight to the inside of our proposals. As a result, and again subject to executive approval, we are proposing changing several of the closure processes and controls to ensure that they're transparent. First of all, we're moving from 3 band usage to 4. And that's to improve fairness and accuracy. Secondly, we're introducing the right to review for participants regarding their historical heat for the 2017 to 19 period under certain circumstances. And we are also seeking to strengthen our compliance regime by increasing the number of inspections and audits and desk-based audits. We want to reiterate that all of these proposals and changes are dependent on executive agreement and may be subject to further amendment. We remain committed to ensuring a fair and transparent closure process, and I welcome the committee's input and any questions you may have on the bill or the proposed regulations.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Not your fault, Sarah, but it puts the committee in a very difficult position here today because, one, we don't have draft regulations to look at, and 2, even if we did have draft regulations, they still haven't been approved by the executive. So, not that this is a meaningless exercise, but it would have been a much better position had we had the final proposal from the department. But listen, this is not officials' fault. In terms of the changes that are proposed to these regulations after the consultation, if you could maybe just give the committee some changes or an outline to those changes, and with the caveat that these are subject to approval by the executive ministerial direction, etc. So on the 4 bands, if you could maybe articulate to the committee why you're proposing to change the banding to 4 rather than 3.
Essentially, the proposed closure arrangements are that the participant continues to use they get their closure payments subject to continuing to use the boiler, but within that the participants themselves want to be able to let us know if they're not continuing to use their boiler to meet their heat needs for a period of the year, and they want to be seen as honest, and people want to be seen as being able to provide detail. So we are proposing to move from the 3 bands which we'd originally proposed, which was 100%, 50% and de minimis, to 100%, 2/3, 1/3 and de minimis. So that would just make it a bit tighter and allow the participants to give a bit more detail.
And is there any financial modelling that's been done on that with the changes in those bandings, what there might be additional resource required? We have our modelling and costing that we've done has been done on the basis that we assume that people will be up to 100%. Okay. We're using the 100%. We're assuming that people will will be using full usage. Yeah. Okay. In terms of then the review of the 2017 to 2019 usage, talk to me more about that. Well, that would be for very limited circumstances where the participant will come forward and, show that 17 to 19, the detail will be worked out, but it'll be shown that 17 to 19 isn't representative, isn't a proper representation, and they'll be able to say, well, we expand out to a slightly longer period and maybe take into consideration the following year, and then that would then allow the participant to say, well, that year is more representative of me. Mm. So the detail hasn't even been worked out yet. Well, it has. It's essentially saying if you can show that 17 to 19 is not representative, you can take into consideration a longer period, and the longer period will be defined in the regulations, and it's likely to be a limited longer period that we'll be looking at. How many years is it likely to be? It's probably going to be the following year. 17 to 20 or just 20? 1920. 1920. Okay. And what's the modelled financial impact of that proposed change? That proposed change isn't expected to have a significant impact on the overall costs, because the usage in 1920 didn't, it wasn't that far out with the 17-19, so it's not modelled to have a significant impact on the costs previously provided to the committee. So again, this isn't a personal attack on officials, but forgive my scepticism whenever I'm told that this isn't likely to have a significant impact given the history of this scheme. So I would be keen just to get the detail in terms of what that would likely be. We've shown DOF that it's within the tolerance. Okay. And what tolerance did DOF allow for?
In business cases, it's with 10% tolerance.
10% tolerance.
So you've proposed 10%. So the department's model for this cost of the scheme was 141.5. Is that right?
Total cost of closure.
Yeah.
The total cost of closure was
214 million.
Yeah.
141.5.
Total annual cost of closure 19.4 million, and the total is you have it there.
Well, Amy cost of closure 196 million.
Yeah, the 196 million. And is that the 10%? So this 10% DOF tolerance then, is that on that?
And we must emphasise that when we calculated that 196 million, we were extremely conservative. We assumed that all of the eligible participants would be using 100% of the 17 to 19 amount, which is very conservative.
Yeah.
And we assumed that they wouldn't be declaring down.
Yes. Okay, and then inspections that was the other change, is that right?
Yeah.
So we were told that the proposed inspection model previously was good, nothing to worry about, but now you're proposing to change that, is that right?
Well, we still think it's good, and we still think what we're proposing is good, but what we're proposing is that we would look to be flexible and risk-based and able to change, to be able to react to unforeseen circumstances and say we can do more inspections as a result of any concerns people might have. We can do more frequent, we can do less. Risk-based, what we'll be able to do is say, well, if this risk comes up, we can do more. And based on the feedback we got from yourselves, we felt that looking at doing more was the right way to go, not that we're doing less.
And then, if you believe that to be the case at inspections and being able to, react, was there any consideration given by the Minister to feedback from the committee in relation to metering on this?
Like I say, these are proposals for closure, and when you're looking at closure, you could have looked at doing a single one-off payment, or you could have, which would have meant that the boilers could have been scrapped the next day potentially, or you could have looked at breaking up the closure payments over the period to which the boiler would have been expected to reach the end of the original period, and make it subject to that you continue to use the boiler to use your heat needs. And this is closure, so it's that based on historic heat, and it's continuing to use the installation to meet your historic heat needs.
Okay, Diana.
Thank you very much, and good morning, and welcome to the committee, and thank you for coming in this morning. My question really, again, it's, and Sarah, you've emphasised public confidence and the need for, transparency, and it still remains really being fair to participants. My question is to ask, why did the department change its position in relation to participants where the boilers change ownership or change location? Could you give us more detail on that, please? And then I have a follow-up question.
We engaged with participants, and we essentially, when I was last at the committee, I gave them, I think the words I used were, this is a real consultation, we really are listening and we really will make changes. And a high proportion of the participants, I think 63%, were against disallowing relocation. And the case made through engagement was that there will be circumstances upon which it will be quite legitimate to move its location, and therefore should be allowed, and it's currently allowed, so therefore we took the decision to allow the relocation.
And what kind of scrutiny is done in that case? How are you prepared to go in and inspect and ensure that it is compliant with the regulations?
The closure regulations will have built into them that we can do physical inspections and physical visits. So upon relocation, we would be able to send a technical expert out there to have a look at the boiler and ensure it's being used appropriately to meet the heat needs of the place where it's installed, the boiler or installation.
And I think because the feedback, one particular issue I received was, look, if we're going to exit this scheme, we want to see, repurposed boilers could be used in other instances, and it's a good example of, following our energy credentials, trying to use affordable energy, and I think that was what came across. But thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Diana. Sinead.
Good morning, and thank you for coming in. Again, I suppose all of us are looking at the responses, and I just want to know, what is your view of the response from some participants that the meter payments are not fair, given that meter payments could provide a more visible way forward for the taxpayer? And are participants really paying for the fact that Ofgem will not be providing the administrative support?
I think what we've proposed here is fair to participants, and I think most participants would see that it's fair. I think this is closure. This is a closure payments based on, your historic heat need that you've shown as your historic heat need, and it's subject to you to continuing to use the boiler in line with your historic heat need.
Sir, are you absolutely confident that the measures contained within the regulations as now you're outlining will ensure that the participants keep accurate records? I'm still concerned about this notification of inspections, etc., and there is a fear that that accurate records may not be kept. Are you totally confident that the regulations as they now stand will give complete and true transparency and good governance?
Yeah.
Okay.
The participants that we've engaged with were very keen to show that they would welcome inspections, and they would welcome.
And just another wee quick question as well. When do you expect the easy to use DFE portal to be up and running?
That's still being worked on, but we're expecting that it'll be ready for by the time these regulations are in.
Okay. There's no delay in that. You're working towards that.
We're working towards that at pace.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
David.
My first question was, is that portal not already ready to go in testing?
I think internally people are working on it. I've seen it, and it looks well. It's being tested internally, so I would say it's nearly ready to go.
Has it been developed by the department, or is it an outside body developing this?
Is it Capital One? Is the name of the company?
Is a company developing it?
No, the department is working with people, the DOF and the independent. I can't remember the independent people, but they're developers who are
they're expert developers.
Yeah. So it's it's gone through all the sort of
version 1.
Version 1, sorry.
Sorry, so it's not the department; it's an outside body that's doing it, correct?
We are engaged with DOF, who are working with version 1 to develop the portal. It's well through development, through to, I think, if I remember right on the timeline, I think it's March time. We are looking at really ramping up the testing for the minimum viable product, which the minimum viable product, as it'll set, will give participants or the representatives that's the portal they'll use to come on and fill in their annual declarations and submit any evidence requirements. There's another stage to development in the background that's going on as well, in terms of how we're going to issue the payments through the portal, or the payment calculation through the portal. But definitely in terms of having the portal ready, the front face of the portal ready for participants, will be ready in line with the regulations.
So it'll be ready, tested, and done by May, whatever, 1st of May when this comes through. Okay. That's perfect. Then why then, and I welcome you've added the extra band in, because that's something I've been screaming about those the 3 bands just sent, or 2 bands, sorry, before. Why not just add another, if it's a portal doing it and an IT solution, why not just add that they can put a meter reading into the portal?
Look, I keep saying this again, this isn't a continuation of the previous scheme where participants got paid for their heat produced. This is closure, where participants are receiving closure payments for their heat needs.
Understand
so
that?
That they can operate the boiler for their heat needs. So it's based on their historic heat need, and the downward banding is for the downward band. Being able to choose a lower band is there to allow the participant to say, look, my boiler wasn't in use for a third of the year.
So I understand all of that, right? And I understand the banding, and I've said to you, I welcome that you've added that extra and you've listened actually to what we've said. So, but whenever you talk about the consultation, the people using these are asking to give more evidence. So why would you not just enable that meter reading to go on, even within the bands, to give that extra bit of scrutiny to the overall picture that this is accurate, to give confidence to everybody else?
I mean, there's nothing to keep. There's nothing to stop the boiler owners from keeping them keeping those meter reads and when we go out.
Why is the portal
showing
not
them.
take that? Why?
Because we won't be basing our payments based on meter reads. That's not what we're.
I understand.
That's not what we're there to do.
Yeah, but you're basing your meter readings on burning of or purchasing of wood chips. That's the evidence you're using to say
We're using the participants' declaration that they continue to use their installation to meet their heat needs as they always have.
You're checking that by the...
And we're checking that.
So why would you not add another column to the portal that would use the meter as well as that would give you a double check and give confidence, which actually what the participants of this are actually asking for?
I don't think it would add. I don't think it would add enough, because if you were going to get that information, then that would presuppose that you're going to pay based on the meter read, and we're not.
It's just an extra check, and then
I think the requirement to have people keep records of their fuel purchases isn't some way that within the department we're going to analyse the amount of fuel that they've purchased and convert that into some sort of heat use. It's really a level of assurance to us that, that the boiler is being used, and so people wouldn't buy fuel, for example, if they weren't using the boiler.
It's like a pattern. It's not
going to be translated into, if you like, a substitute for metering.
It's like a pattern of behaviour. Your pattern of behaviour continues to be that you're using it to meet
maybe
your
I've misunderstood the portal. So the portal then is just that you're there and you're still alive, because you're not actually going to check anything.
We are, but we're going to have the desk-based audits and the physical audits.
What information?
The portal also contains the annual declaration.
What information goes in the portal?
That they're utilising their plans.
What information goes into that portal every year?
Well, they have to confirm the information that we hold, that is correct, and they have to make a declaration that they're complying with the scheme and using their boilers.
And sort of, and then anybody who, those people on both random and risk-based basis. So, for example, people who were inactive for a long time before closure would be high risk, and then they would be flagged, and we would look a bit more at what they're doing.
I just don't understand why you don't take more data into that portal. The last bit for me is, but previously the department, the cost to run this was 2-3 times. I don't have the figure in front of me that Ofgem was, but I don't understand how that cost is so high if the portal's doing the collection of the data.
The Ofgem cost of 0.9 million doesn't include it doesn't include some things. For example, it doesn't include physical audits and inspections, and it does include the department's costs for things like machinery of government and the department's oversight and the things that the department does. So the Ofgem 0.9 million, to that you would add maybe an extra 0.7 million of department compliance, etc. And that would be for the current arrangements, whereas going forward it's estimated at 1.1 million. So when you take in, and we will be doing physical inspections, so when you take into consideration, that the department's own ongoing costs of machinery of government, oversight, compliance, etc., that in total the closure arrangements are cheaper.
They are cheaper?
In terms of admin, yeah, they are lower.
Maybe get those just to have. We'll get that's fine. That's my fault. Thank you.
Patrick?
Okay, thank you. And look, quite a few of the questions I've been going to ask have been asked around the banding in particular. But for me, what I would really like clarity on is the inspections. That's one point which I'm really not sure on and open to being convinced on. But particularly around the frequency of those and the notification of those. So if you could give me some assurance on that and some more detail, that would be great.
Well, obviously there'll be a procedure developed as to how we do the physical inspections. We would envisage that we would flag, certain people as high risk, and they would get a physical inspection, and there could also be the ability to do random physical inspections as well, just to make sure people don't, say, oh, well, I've been inspected, so I've been inspected once, so we'll never be inspected again, so that can't happen. So, and we would say there would initially be the declaration, and then if there's something amiss in the declaration that looks odd, and in particular for people who have been previously inactive and hadn't been engaging when there was metering, they would be initially classed as high risk. Then the desk-based audit with adding the ability to request, let me see all these photographs, let me inspect fuel records, let me look at that. And then if that still isn't satisfactory, then an inspector goes out, visits the site, has a look at the fuel store, has a look that the boiler's in place, has a look that it's connected, that the heat is being used, that everything looks right, and we would be looking to appoint a technical experts to do the physical inspections for us, be that internal or external. We would be looking to ensure that the people doing the inspections are technical experts and know what they're doing.
But no, that's reassuring, and I suppose, for me, I would like to better understand what specific metrics you're going to use to determine whether or not somebody's high risk, when they reach that category, how they're measured, how quickly after somebody being identified as high risk, do these procedures kick in?
In the initial stages, we would imagine high risk would immediately be people who've been inactive for a period of time. Going forward, high risk might be somebody who's moved location, for example. Apart from high risk might also be somebody who maybe the information wasn't complete or satisfactory, it was there, but there was something amiss in the previous physical inspection. And then there would also be the ability to make a judgment call on what comes in. And then there would also be a random element, so that, just so that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So there could be a random element to catch things.
Okay. And then I suppose one of the things that has been mentioned today, but has been a feature as well, is that things can be updated or changed as you go. So obviously, if you find that there's perhaps a loophole or there's an issue that emerges further down the line that you weren't anticipating and hadn't planned for, that can be adapted and that those processes can be changed. So obviously that's imperative, that there can be no loopholes and that the process is watertight. So within that, what flexibility do you have to actually move those processes? Because my worry is that we do something now and then have to review it substantially in a number of months, a number of years, whatever. So I want to get a better understanding of what flexibility you have, what levers you have. Is there any planning for how you would try and change things as we go forward? Because we don't want to put something in place that immediately has to be changed or isn't fit for purpose.
In terms of processes and procedures, we can review those and change those ourselves within the department. In terms of processes and procedures, and anything we publish or guidance notes or anything like that. In terms of regulations, any regulations, obviously they come to the committee, they come for scrutiny, they go to the assembly, they go through the normal process. If we feel if there's a need to bring forward regulations, then obviously if there was ever a need for primary, it would be the usual process. So it depends on what you're changing and what level it's at. Is it just a matter of saying, oh, we're going to increase the number of inspections or whatever? That would be process and procedure.
Yeah, no, my worry is, and I do appreciate there needs to be a level of flexibility within it, but I nearly feel that there's I suppose that you're nearly expecting that there's going to have to be reviews, changes and so on. Is that the case?
No, that's absolutely not the case. What we're expecting is that this tariff, which is set, is the tariff that will be used to calculate the closure payments. They will continue until the period when the participant would have left the original scheme. That will go on. That the evidence inspection regime will be as we're designing now. Guidance notes sometimes change in terms of you know, 3 people will review this or 2 people will review this, you know, small changes like that and improvements you can make. Then big changes that require regulations would obviously come back to the committee, and any normal internal scrutinies in publication.
Or can I ask, are you talking about in the context of clause 16 and 17 of the bill? Is that kind of where you're coming from? So I think whenever we were designing the bill, we were very conscious of the inquiry findings. That very much was there. That I think, Sarah, you used the phrase earlier, we don't know what we don't know. We are not expecting to have to come back to revise the closure payments. We are not expecting to have to come back to revise the tariffs beyond the inflationary uplift planned for closure. But in the absence of those enabling powers in the bill, if something unexpected does happen down the line, we really do find ourselves in significant difficulties, I think collectively, to try and resolve it. So certainly for clause 16 in the bill, we have no plans to use those powers. There's no expectation that we will, but I do think we were very conscious of the lessons learned.
Okay, no, and it's important that they're there. It was just, I kind of had got a sense that they might be being expected to be used rather than there as a, I suppose, a last, line of change. No, look, appreciate that clarity, and I probably will have more points on that. It's just I suppose our role is just to ensure that it's watertight and to ensure that those things have been thought through, but appreciate that and appreciate the clarity from you both on that. Thank you.
Thank you, and Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sarah and team. I suppose probably first of all going to that point of Patrick. So I get the point, as in we need to prepare for an unknown, because history shows us with this scheme there was a huge unknown which ultimately led to the situation we're in today. So it's about balancing that risk. So on the one hand, I appreciate the need for a form of flexibility to allow that. So first of all, if we look towards inspection, those that are participants in the scheme, I mean, we had evidence from them, they quite clearly articulated that, inspection was not something that they feared. In fact, they welcomed, because they believed themselves to have been hard done by a scheme that they legitimately entered and have continued to be honourable in all their dealings. So on the inspection is what you're saying, that the element of flexibility is to allow for further, more rigorous inspection rather than at the minimal end. I'm right in that interpretation?
I think it's like I say, there's the primary legislation. Obviously no plans to change that primary legislation. Regulations, no plans to change the regulations when they come in until closure. Guidance notes we intend to make as clear as we possibly can. Procedures, our internal procedures, we intend to make as clear as we possibly can, and we intend that they will be living documents that people will adhere to. If something unforeseen happens, that we will look at them.
So just on the point, the flexibility for inspection is to the upper end rather than the minimal end if required in particular circumstances. That's a fair point.
It'll be risk-based.
Okay. So the point with that, and I'll finish on that point and then I'll go to the next. So obviously then there's the balance of the participants talking about, well, meter reading, was appropriate, the department not using that aspect, and it's to go to a point that David raised. The record keeping inspections and audit, is it fair for us to expect that within those records, genuine participants would keep a record of meter readings? Is that a fair?
You'll note from the last time we were here, we discussed that meter recalibration after 10 years. We had previously advised participants that they didn't have to do the meter recalibration because that was an added expense, and if the scheme was going to close, then we wouldn't be expecting them to recalibrate the meters. if participants were to keep meter reads, recalibrate their meters for their own safety and security to give themselves comfort, and they were to produce that as an extra line to somebody, you know, that wouldn't be an issue.
But it's not something we'll be so.
It's not something we're specifically asking for
So
in the portal, no.
A record keeping, a prudent record for a participant to keep for audit and inspection, what would be contained within that? What would you expect?
We will be mandating that they have to keep photographs and fuel purchase records.
So the other side of that balancing and preparing for, flexibility built in and a concern that came for the participants. So they were open to keeping meter readings. They didn't deny the need for rigorous inspection, but was that given the history of this scheme and they feel themselves hard done by, that the ability to change the tariff was something that concerned them. So the protection that we talked about at that time was that ultimately, if we ever envisaged that change through something unforeseen, and you say that would be the only basis by which something like that would ever have to be used, what is the accountability mechanism that is a vote in the Assembly?
Yes.
If that happened? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's a form of accountability. So when we look at the consultation, so you've had a wide and varied stakeholder engagement exercise, both through the means of this consultation and before. So what's the total number of participants that this would account for in this closure scheme? What's the total?
It's just shy of 2,000, so it's
Okay.
circa 1,900.
So 216 responses then to the consultation. What was the department's view on that level of engagement? Do you find that a representative sample?
That's a good level of engagement.
Okay. How does it compare with other consultations the department has?
There's 1,900 installations, but that's about 900 participants. So
Yeah, so yes, that cuts it down even more. So it is a
It was about, in terms of participant response, I did take it as representative. I think I calculated at the time that we were about 20%. Obviously relying on self-declaration from people as they're filling in the consultation, but for the I think we have 900 participants. It was about 20% response rate. In terms of how that compares to previous, I think in the 2021 consultation, I think it was maybe closer to the 500 responses. Alan, would that be? I think it was more, but I also think that the 2021 consultation inspired much stronger feeling from the participants. This particular consultation, there were consistencies through the responses in terms of the issues raised. Obviously, each person given their own.
You're less likely to respond to a consultation if you agree with the proposal.
Yes, and even in terms of the analysis of it, what we found was that typically, not across the board, but typically, we may have got a case where the quantification was positive, the qualitative leaned negative because people that disagreed were more likely to leave comments. I'm sorry.
So you indicate then that through the consultation that the majority of respondents were supportive of the closure scheme, but there was a small number that were opposed. Can you draw the committee's attention to, I know they're a small number, but what were those positions of opposition? What were they based upon in particular?
I think if, in terms of the draft consultation response, question 6, do you have any other comments or suggestions regarding the proposed closure of the scheme? I think we had left that question quite broad to allow people to feedback across sort of various different topics. So I've tried to articulate it as best I can in the consultation response, but things like calls for fair and final compensation, there were calls for a one-off tax-free payment of some kind of compensation. There was feedback around broken trust, contractual concerns, financial and emotional impact, and there were requests for the tariffs as they stand didn't get an awful lot of feedback. I think people were generally quite content with the new tariffs. What there were calls for were retrospective compensation, which I think we had expected, but isn't something that we're able. I mean, we're not able to backdate to 2019. So sorry, John, I'll not read through the whole document.
Just
but
I'm trying to get it. Just is there a broad major point?
There really wasn't any one particular issue. What I did take from reviewing the consultation responses was that we in the department, certainly in terms of our future planning for delivery of the energy strategy and net zero, really have to look about how we build trust back with participants. And I actually think this process has begun that journey for us. I think the relationship is improving.
We can certainly see that in terms of their engagement to date. It's certainly a better place than where we have been previously. So one of the points was in exceptional circumstances, RHI users would be permitted to appeal the use of the 2017 to 19 period where they feel it may not be representative. So exceptional circumstances, how many would you anticipate that this could cover?
There were a few compelling examples in the consultation responses of incidents like maybe the installation had been inoperable for a period over that 2017 to 2019 period, and there were maybe a couple of 0 meter readings submitted and things like that. Typically, we are not expecting. I mean, the right to request a review will be there. We are not expecting that to change.
Okay. And what is the process? So a request to review comes in from a particular RHI boiler user, and then that is obviously there's a process obviously to establish whether or not it meets the criteria for change or not.
And again, I mean, all subject to executive agreement, because obviously this hasn't been. But I mean, I think from our perspective, I think the onus would be on the participant to provide evidence that the 2017 to 2019 period it is not representative of their ongoing heat needs.
Okay, and finally from me, consultation exercise, engagement exercise. In best guess scenario, does the department feel that this will be legally challenged in court by participants in terms of the closure scheme? And if so, what's the consequence?
We can't give any guarantees as to whether or not something would be challenged in court, but based on our engagement to date, we think that the risk would be reasonably low, very low. In terms of consequences, that would be for the court to decide. But
consequences in terms of the future?
I do think in terms of previous court decisions that I've seen, the judgments did talk a lot about fairness, and I think that is what we've tried to be here, fair to the participant as well as the taxpayer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, colleagues, thank you for that. Still a lot of work to do on this, but can I thank you very much for the work that you've done to date on this. I know it's a difficult, complex issue, which obviously attracts great public scrutiny. But from my perspective, can I thank you for the work that you're doing. We're keen to see the draft regulations as soon as possible. So whenever that's completed, the committee would be keen to see those in whatever means they need to be shared. And I wish you well getting executive approval. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, colleagues, couple of things. So I know everyone's aware, but just for those who may be watching online, the work that the committee is currently doing in relation to the bill on the closure scheme is different from the proposed draft regulations. What we as a committee are required to do is a committee scrutiny of the proposed very short bill, which gives the department regulations. Obviously they are intertwined, but there will be two separate processes in the Assembly, one for the bill and then one for the regulations. The committee stage for the RHI closure of non-domestic scheme bill is still ongoing, and the committee had a discussion this morning, and we're very keen to hear from anyone who has anything they wish to add to this process. So I'm making an appeal as chair. If anyone is interested, listening online or in Northern Ireland, to come to the committee, they're very welcome to do, and we'll also push that out on social media.
It could be a paid ad campaign, couldn't it?
Yeah. Or remember anything, Peter, we want to take further in relation to the regulations at this stage?
Yes, Chair. Firstly, just to apologise to members, this is my mistake. The Chair quoted a number which I'd given him, £141 million for the closure costs. That's just for the 99 kilowatt boilers. The overall cost is just what the department said, 196 million. Yeah. So sorry about that, I should have been clearer. In terms of the follow-up to the department, can I suggest, Chairperson, we write to the department just seeking further information on the financial impact of the different historic period. So if they go from 2017-19 to an extra year or a different year, what that might be, the timeline for the portal development, further information, breakdown of the administration costs, and does the committee wish to suggest to the department that perhaps the guidance that they issue to boiler owners suggest to them that they include meter reading information as well, if they have it, if it's calibrated while the member was out? What the department then clarified was the meters may not have been calibrated for a while, but they could indicate in the guidance that that could be included. Does the committee? Yeah, let's do that. Great, lovely. Okay.
Well, listen, there's still a lot of work to be done on this, members. Whenever Sarah was updating this there, we still haven't had a final decision if that 17 to 19 period is being challenged, what that's likely to be. So is that to be 1920? How many people that's likely to affect? What the financial implications of that may be? If I'm quoting her correctly, she said detail will be worked out. When Podrick raised issues in relation to the inspection and record keeping scheme, the response was protocols need to be developed. So there's still a lot of work to be done on this. I want to see this bill and regulations passed that brings an end to this situation that is value for money for the taxpayer and for legitimate recipients. But the department on occasions does not make it easy for the committee to try and move this along. Okay, are members content with that? Are members content we take a short comfort break? So I can use the bathroom. If we're agreed, we'll come back in around 5 minutes, members. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, members. Just need to use the bathroom. Push the button there.
Okay, we're going to move 9 members, which is an SL1, chemicals, GMOs. I wish to advise members that the department indicates that it is to lay a statutory rule, the Chemical Health and Safety and Genetically Modified Organism Contained Use Amendment European Exit Regulation Northern Ireland 2025. The clerk's cover note is at page 112. Related correspondence is in tabled items. The proposed rule will be subject to negative resolution procedure. The department has indicated that this rule is cross-cutting in nature and was approved by the executive on the 17th of December 2025. The proposed regulations make changes to the biocidal products and chemicals appointment of authorities enforcement regulations Northern Ireland and the genetically modified organisms continued use regulations Northern Ireland 2015 in line with the Windsor framework. A previous Westminster statutory instrument, the Chemicals, Health and Safety and Genetically Modified Organisms Contained Use Amendment, etc. EU Exit Regulation 2019 altered the regime for the authorisation of the use of biocide products and genetic modified organisms. Under the Windsor framework, it appears that it has had to be disapplied to Northern Ireland and the original EU rules reapplied with some typographical changes. Changing the reference to EU member states to Northern Ireland, etc. For the GMO regulations, a reference is also added to the medical products for veterinary use marketed in accordance with the Veterinary Medicines Regulations 2023. The committee noted the proposed rule in November but deferred scrutiny pending consideration by the executive. Members wish to comment on this?
So, I suppose, Chair, whilst I understand we should always, and I think everybody will, take very seriously public health concerns in relation to chemicals, but the DEP's concern with this, and indeed some concern that I have, watching some of this even within the Windsor Framework Committee, is twofold. So number one, democratic oversight and the risk of possible divergence. So with the democratic oversight part, so Northern Ireland will be defined on the same basis as EU countries for the purposes of enforcement, inspections and risk assessments. So that it leaves no democratic oversight or accountability, both from whether it's this place or democratically elected chambers in which we send members to. That's the first point. The second point would be the risk of divergence. So again, it's a whilst we remain tied to EU law, in particular areas like this, we will always have at risk the potential for further GB to NI divergence. And that, to me, is an unacceptable position. I think it could lead to more problems and unintended consequences. So I would be proposing that, as a committee, we pray against this SL.
Have any colleagues online who wish to comment at this stage? Any in the room?
Chair, I would just say that, I mean, this is what happens post Brexit, and we have to navigate all of this. So no, we won't be voting in favour of the proposal.
Okay, so
the motion would be actually, because the rule isn't laid yet, so you can't pray against it yet.
Yes.
So it would be whether you'd be content for the department to make the rule.
Yes.
So I think the member saying no,
Yeah.
and those that otherwise would be aye, or they could be abstaining. So.
Sure. So I've no other references at this stage for any member online wishing to speak, so I'm happy to second Jonathan's proposal that the committee is not content for the department to lay this rule. So I'm going to put that to the meeting if members are content. So all those in favour of the proposal by Jonathan and myself, please indicate by raising your hand.
Okay, so not usually it's okay. So that's 2.
And Diane is 3.
Thank you.
Okay, and all those against Jonathan's proposal? 1, 2. Sinead 3.
Yeah, myself as well.
And Padraig, yeah.
Did you say yes, Padraig? There.
Sorry, I missed you there.
Against.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so those voted for the proposal from Jonathan are 3. Those are against 4. So are members content then that I put to the meeting that the committee is content that the department lays the rule? So those in favour are David Honeyford, Kate Nicholl, Sinead McLaughlin and Padraig Delargay. Those against are myself, Jonathan Buckley and Diana Armstrong. So the committee has agreed that they're content for the rule to be laid. Okay.
Great.
Move then to item 10, the Energy Bill Relief Scheme and Energy Bill Discount Scheme. The department has laid a statutory rule SR 26/XXX, the Energy Bill Relief Scheme and Energy Bill. Do we have a number for that?
They don't have numbers because
at
it's
this
draft
stage?
affirmative.
Of course, yeah. Discount Scheme Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 26. The rule is to come into effect on the 1st of April 26 and will be subject to draft affirmative procedure and will therefore to be debated in plenary. The clerk's covering note is at page 160. Do members have any questions they want to ask about this at this stage? No, if not, then I put to the meeting that the Committee for the Economy has considered SR 2026, the Energy Bill Relief Scheme and Energy Bills Discount Scheme Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 26, and subject to the report of the ESR, recommends that it is affirmed by the Assembly. Members agreed? Agreed. Okay, sorry Peter.
Sorry.
Item 11, SR 26/3, the Further Education Amendment Order. The Department has laid a statutory rule, SR 26/3, the Further Education Amendment Order Northern Ireland 2026. The clerk's covering note is at page 175. The committee considered the proposed rule on the 5th of November and had no concerns. The Department advises that the laid rule does not deviate from the original proposal. As such, I put that the Committee for the Economy has considered SR 2026/3, the Further Education Amendment Order Northern Ireland 2026, and subject to the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rule, has no objection to the rule. Members agreed? Agreed. Okay, item 12 then, correspondence, members. Quite a few to go through here. So item 2 at page 196, members are asked to note departmental correspondence in respect of the mid-term review of the energy strategy. So members may have had a chance over Christmas to read this quite lengthy document. I have not quite got through all of the detail of it yet, but given the importance of the energy strategy, I would be keen that the committee would get a briefing from the department on its mid-term review, particularly on the back of the well-documented comments made by the Audit Office in relation to the fact that our progress and transition towards net zero energy has not been where it should be. Are members content that we would seek a briefing from the department on the mid-term review? Agreed, thank you.
Chair, just to advise members that this is with Public Accounts Committee. I've spoken to the clerk, they haven't scheduled it yet, so we're okay, we're in the clear, so I will attempt to get them in soon to do this. But if PAC decides...
Just declaring interest then.
Well, then we may get into difficulties
No,
with
we
this,
can
but if we
still
do it
look.
quickly. We can.
So we don't need to focus on the Audit Office review. What we're focusing on is this document by the
Okay,
department.
jolly good. Yes, Chairperson.
Item 3 is to consider departmental response in respect of the renewable obligation and feed-in tariff schemes. Is the committee content to forward the correspondence
To the Agriculture Committee.
to the Agriculture Committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Item 4, members are asked to note correspondence from Northern Ireland Environment Agency. Members content to note.
Great.
Thank you. Members are also to note table correspondence from the department in relation to Kira. Members content to note at this stage. Thank you. Item 5 is for noting ministerial correspondence on Project Gigabit. Members content to note. Okay. Item 6, members are asked to note departmental responses setting out the value of investments by local government district. The TOR for dual market access stakeholders forum are provided. Sinead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for that. Well, I think the figure shows give us more clarity in what is actually going on. Because we questioned the figures, or I questioned the figures in and around inward investment activity by district council level, and we've got now more detail, and it's worse than even previously thought. So the activity in 24-25, out of the 560 jobs that were created in Northern Ireland, 526 of them were actually created in Belfast. And I'm also questioning the figures because they're adding remote working into outside of the Belfast metropolitan area, even though in their notes they're saying themselves that they can't actually allocate them to a district council level. So they're actually manipulating those figures. So even the number of investments, which they say is 19 in total, and indicate 32% of them are outside BMA, it is actually only 13%. In the outside of the BMA, if you take out the 4, there has only been 3 jobs created outside of Belfast that we know of. So out of 526 or 528 jobs and 29 jobs, sorry, created last year, only 3 were outside of the Belfast metropolitan area. Only 1 of those jobs came west of the Ban. 1 job. And they talk about regional balance. The figures are being manipulated and presented in a way that is actually not telling the true story about regional balance in Northern Ireland. And I think that we really need to question the Minister. Invest NI are an arm's length body, but they're not hands off. And we are not going to be gaslighted by telling us that 59% of overall investments went outside of the Belfast metropolitan area, because these figures quite clearly tell us a completely different story.
Thank you, Sinead, and no doubt you will ably and remarkably put those points to the Minister next week, and you do highlight very important
Philip,
points.
I think this is something that we all need to be concerned of.
I agree.
Coleraine, Causeway, Coast and Glen, nothing. Fermanagh, nothing. West of the Ban has been absolutely ignored by Invest NI in relation to all of these figures. Northern Ireland will never work, ever, if we do not give wealth to the rest of Northern Ireland. And I think these figures are absolutely shocking at the very least. I have already written to Kieran Donoghue. I've reached out to the new Chief Development Officer, and I've reached out to the board of Invest NI. This is the target that they have picked to actually indicate regional balance is totally off the Richter scale. It is no indication whatsoever. The number of jobs and the investment that Invest NI make in order to get those jobs and the number of visits are actually what we should be measuring, and they're not measuring them because they know it is absolutely total failure.
And you eloquently articulate the issue, Sinead, and you'll know as well as I that the target that Invest NI have was set by the department, not by
the Minister.
Yeah.
The Minister.
Yeah.
And the Minister represents Causeway Coast and Glens as well, and she, it is absolutely, totally the wrong target, and it is absolutely trying to gaslight us all by saying 59% of all investments is outside. That doesn't matter at all. Let's talk money and let's talk jobs. 1 job west of the Ban in 24-25.
Points are well made. Jonathan.
Thanks, Chair. So I suppose a lot of this information come by means of questioning from both Sinead and I. I think there is a room for discussion on the job aspect, because it's not how it's being presented. I know Sinead has a particular perspective, but I'm not denying that there may be truth to that, or somewhere in the middle. But certainly on their table, I think further clarity on what actually constitutes jobs vis-a-vis investments is an important discussion. The other part of that, and I've always probably taken a more balanced approach in this, whereby I always believe when it comes to FDI investment, or indeed business creation, largely we're led by where employers and those that want to provide the FDI feel that they would best, have bang for their buck in Northern Ireland and add to our GDP. So I think we always have to balance that. It's easy to look at a spreadsheet, but there's people that benefit from jobs created centrally in Belfast that live beyond Belfast, and I know that for those that commute from my own constituency. In relation to visits, we always get drawn into the debate here about Derry City and Strabane District Council area compared to vis-a-vis Belfast. There's more to Northern Ireland than that, and there's other areas which fall well below both when it comes to visits, so that's something to keep in mind too. But I wanted to draw the committee's attention particularly to the dual market access working group that was unveiled whenever we hadn't heard about it before. I think from you, Chair, you requested further details on that. Couple of follow-up points that I would like us to ask, which is, number one, whose decision was it to establish that dual market? There's a specific name for it. I don't know if it's Access Working Group or it's something else, but there's a particular name. Oh yes, yeah, Dual Market Access Forum. So who was it decision to establish that? Who determined which stakeholders would be represented within the group? And I see Intertrade Ireland is represented. I don't have no problem with that, but can they clarify why Intertrade UK wasn't included within it? And also, could this committee be provided with the minutes of the working group's meeting to date? There's just a couple of questions.
Okay. David.
Thank you. I welcome a lot of this. I want to take on that dual market access, but Johnny just talk about having the evidence base now can hopefully rule out a lot of what we're listening to in the chamber. We are seeing growth in our economy that is happening, which is really positive. We're seeing it double the UK because of the advantage we have with this. And I just wanted to welcome something I've raised here, was Invest in I's website now is refreshed to actually promote the ability that we can to bring inward investment in, and the investment we have can have access to two markets. So that's a really positive thing. And I know it's only in correspondence looking through, but just that's something we've raised and has been addressed. So I agree with Sinead on a lot of what she says about that regional balance. I would still object to the way that is being calculated in the BMAP. When you look at my own area, the number of jobs created is really positive. The 70 something there in Lagavulin, in the Lisburn Castlereagh part of that anyway. That asks a load of other questions about land and availability and how we do this. So a lot of what Sinead said would support that, and that's sort of the answers, and where the focus needs to be to actually enable this to happen is really, I suppose, rather than just stats for the sake of stats. So listen, thank you, and nothing else to add.
Thank you very much for that, David.
Sure, sorry, just one other wee one, which was the manufacturing data in relation to FDI and investments. Could we potentially get a further breakdown of that in line with NISRA categories? Because obviously there is a difference in what constitutes manufacturing in a lot of people's eyes.
Those are the things that Mr. Buckley asked for. Is that agreed, Chairperson?
Agreed. Sinead, had you a proposal at this stage? Sorry, I might not have just captured it. Should we let Sinead in, please?
Sorry, Chair. I'm trying to get my mic on. Well, yes, I think that there's a lot of data here in relation to the Invest in I figures. There's a lot of questionable data and why they're calculating remote working as outside BMA, etc. So there's a lot of questions that we need to further explore with Invest in I obviously in my own capacity as a foil MLA, I'm asking quite a lot about my own particular city and region. But I do think for us as a committee, If we're getting results, business results or an annual report from InvestNI, we need to know that it's based on figures that are, we don't want them to come and shine a shiny light. If there are difficulties in getting investments outside of Belfast, we need to know what the department have to do in order to do that. And again, Jonathan, I take your point. Investors may choose and want to invest in Belfast, but it's because everything else is working well there. There's good transport links, there's good everything else, and high number of highly educated and skilled workforce. And that's the problem. The problem is that there is no investment in those other areas outside of the Belfast region, and that leads to this absolutely dearth of economic investment in other areas west of the band. And that is why there needs to be a regional balance put in legislation in order to ensure that doesn't happen, because we have prevailed over this failure for years and years and years, and it needs to stop. So sorry, Chair, what we need to do, I think the department itself, we've got the figures now from InvestNI, and the department themselves need to be able to stand over those figures and say that they are totally accurate, and they believe in those figures as they are, and the way that they're calculated, and that figure of 65% that they say going forward, that they believe that figure is going to somehow support regional balance. I mean, why are they not taking job numbers? I mean, it's very simple. Jobs, and also, if you're looking at the median wage as well of those jobs, there's something like £14,000 of a difference between an average wage in the dairy and Belfast jobs. It is absolutely shocking, and yet they take the shiny figure that is basically manipulated in order to deliver on a promise by the minister. It's not actually the truth. And it's about time we pull back the curtain and shone a light.
If we could add to our forward work plan, then whoever in the department's heading up regional balance can come along and be questioned by members on relation to the progress to date on that.
Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. We then move to item 7 for noting, which is somewhat tied to 6, so members content to note at this stage.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, item 8 then, no correspondence, members from the Mission Growth Fund, members content.
Agreed.
Item 9 then, members are asked to note ministerial response to the Committee for Finance, members content to note. Item 10 is again for noting in relation to the AI Advisory Panel, members content to note. Thank you. Item 11, members are asked to note the Southern Regional College Annual Report, members content to note. Then again at item 12, members are asked to note annual reports and financial statements for Belfast Met, Southern Regional College and Northwest Regional College, members content to note. Item 13, members are asked to note departmental correspondence on research bulletins, members content to note. Thank you. Item 14, members are asked to note correspondence from the Executive Office, members content to note. Item 15, members are asked to note correspondence from the Minister for the Economy and Communities in relation to broadcasting, members content to note. Item 16, members are asked to note a response from the Lady Chief Justice, members content to note and add to the Insolvency Bill Committee stage report. Thank you. Item 17 are correspondence from Queen's University and the Ulster University, members content to note. Thank you. Item 18, members are asked to consider a response from the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and the Minister for the Cabinet Office in respect of the Road Haulage Association and the Windsor Framework. It has indicated the deadline for the implementation of ICS2 in Northern Ireland for road movements was extended to the 31st of December to give businesses more time to prepare. The committee content to forward this response to the Democratic Scrutiny Committee and note the response pending a briefing from the Windsor Framework HMRC Northern Ireland Stakeholder Engagement Team. Agreed? Okay. Item 19, members are asked to consider correspondence from the Secretary of State and the Minister for the Cabinet Office in respect of vehicle type approvals. The UK Government has launched a call for evidence which closes on the 12th of February with a view to understanding why GB manufacturers have not adopted EU type approvals. The UK Government is to bring forward legislation to mandate that vehicles placed on the market in GB must hold dual GB and EU type approvals and markings. No timeline is provided at this stage. Members wish, I think there was a pretty unanimous view within the committee that we wanted to see this progress sooner rather than later. Are members content that we as a committee would write on this call for evidence to make clear that we want to see this legislation take place without delay?
Absolutely, and I think then included within that clear timelines to give clarity to the industry.
Absolutely, just a timeline for it.
Members content?
Yes.
Okay. Item 20, members are asked to note correspondence from the House of Lords Scrutiny Committee. Members content? Note. And then 21, members are asked to consider response from the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury in respect of the operation of the Customs Duty Waiver Scheme, clarifying that businesses have the option of making retrospective CDWS claim given business time to decide whether to use the CDWS or the duty reimbursement scheme. Is the committee content to forward to the Allied Customer Services and the Windsor Framework Democratic Scrutiny Committee? Thank you. Item 22 is to note correspondence from the Secretary of State in relation to CBAM. Members content and to forward to the Windsor Framework Committee. Item 23. Oh yeah, sorry, apologise. Sorry. Item 23, members are asked to consider correspondence from the Construction Employers Federation. Members content to note. Thank you. Item 24, members are asked to note a pivotal briefing. Members content. Item 25 for noting correspondence from the Association of British Insurers. Members content. Item 26, members are asked to consider an invitation from Sony for a lunchtime meeting with the tour on Wednesday the 4th of February. Committee content. Yep. Okay. Item 27, members are asked to consider an invitation to the event Offshore Wind Farm Development Securing the Benefits for Northern Ireland. Members content to note and can reply on an individual basis. Agreed. Yep. Item 28, members are asked to consider an invitation from the Assembly Engagement Team to join Assembly events at the Balmoral Show.
Yes, I think we should.
Absolutely.
We did last year as a committee.
I believe it's a year.
It was very good.
Didn't as a committee, members
Well,
went individually?
Oh, sorry. Well, as individually, I know there's a lot from our committee that was there at the time.
It was good. Yeah. We had a joint committee at the time, didn't we?
We were definitely involved in
it.
I think there was a. Okay, so you want to do something like that?
We were involved.
Yeah, we had
I think we definitely were.
We had a joint.
You tested me there, Peter. I do.
You were there.
There was a joint. There was a joint
session,
informal. And I think that was included Deirdre and the economy committee members, of which we were discussing.
Young
It
farmers.
was AD plants and things.
Yes,
like that.
it was. Yeah.
So you would like something like that again?
Yeah,
Thanks for
absolutely. It was really useful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See you again.
Okay. And then item 29, members are asked to note correspondence from TransLink providing their press release in respect of the nighttime movers service. So as members will see, we've had a record increase in the use of late night public transport, aided and abetted and delivered by this committee and all its members. So thank you for your work on that. And we will encourage people to continue to use that late night transport for the remainder of the year while it's in place, not just
We
for
need
Christmas.
some more regional balance on that late night.
You can get a bus down to
Maybe you have it in
The
your
Maiden-
city, Sinead, but I don't have it in my
the
town.
Maiden City. You can get a bus to. Okay, members forward work plan, Peter.
Members, so next week then we have the minister. The minister wants to come at 10:30. So what I think I'm suggesting is that maybe we'll start a little bit later at say 10:15. We'll do all our business or correspondence and all any delegated legislation we have. Then hear from the minister from 10:30 to 12. The department is saying look, they're not going to brief on the 5-year sustainability business plan. They were commissioned to do this by the Department of Finance. These I don't think have happened. But what they're willing to do is they would, the Permanent Secretary would stay on after the Minister leaves at 12, talk to us a bit about the business plan, anything that isn't covered with the Minister. Then at 12:30, what members would do, hopefully, is pop up the stairs to meet with the Chartered Accountants of Ireland to talk about, they want to brief about corporation tax, so working lunch with them and with the Committee for Finance. So that will be a fairly action-packed day. Then on the 28th, what I'd be seeking to do would be to have the department come in and talk about the midterm energy review, as well as what's shown there. On the 4th, oh dear, this has gone wrong. On the 4th of February, Sony at lunchtime, and additionally, in terms of the Windsor Framework HMRC NI stakeholder engagement team briefing, well, we haven't quite got them tied down to a date yet, but I'm saying 4th of March. If we'll get them sooner, we will. The utility regulator has also indicated that they would like to come along on the 11th of March, a long way away, but they want to talk about the forward work programme. As you will remember, Storm Éowyn, there were no guaranteed service standards in Northern Ireland, unlike in the rest of the UK. So they, I think, have done a consultation on that, and we've asked them to give feedback on that at that meeting, so you could see where that would go. And additionally, then the Department and Invest NI are asking to come on the 22nd of April to talk about trade and investment and their international plan, etc. So if
is this on their proposed open quotes ethical investment framework, close quotes?
As you're aware from AQs, that's in development, but I imagine, well, they should expect questions on that, I would have thought. If members are content with the forward work programme as amended.
Members content? Yep. Thank you. Members, are there any other business at this stage?
Briefly, sure, I may have missed it. Peter, was there any update on the energy efficiency capital grant?
No, we do keep asking.
Okay.
There is a report, and the report was due to be very nearly finished. Okay, so I will write again to the department and seek an update if that is agreed, Chairperson.
It's a hobby of mine.
If there are no other business, members, the committee will now adjourn, and we'll be back here on the 21st of January at 10 a.m. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thanks, members. Here we go.